Hi, and welcome to the news headlines at this hour. White House negotiators say talks with the congressional Democrats have fallen apart over a coronavirus stimulus package, and they will recommend President Donald Trump sign a series of executive orders as early as this weekend on a number of programs aimed at helping Americans. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, DeKalb, and Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer DNY met for more than 2 hours on Friday with Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin and a White House Chief of Staff Mark Meadows in a last-ditch attempt to salvage discussions now in their second week. But the efforts were fruitless, with both sides admitting that they were at the standstill with no real pathway forward. The president would like us to make the deal, but unfortunately we did not make any progress, Mnuchin said after the 2 hours meeting. The chief and I will recommend the president, based on our lack of activity today, to move forward with some executive orders. An Air India Express plane with 190 people on board has crashed at the airport in the southern state of Kerala, killing at least 18 people, officials say. The Boeing 737 en route from Dubai skidded off the runway in rain and broke in two after landing at Calicut Airport, aviation officials said. The flight was repatriating Indians stranded by the coronavirus crisis. Prime Minister Narendra Modi said he was pained by the plane accident. The rescue operation at the crash site has now been completed and survivors have been taken to the hospital in Calicut and Malappuram, according to Kerala Chief Minister Pinarayi Vijayan. Dozens of people were injured, 156 of them seriously, officials said. Air India Express said the two pilots were among the dead. Germany has recorded more than 1,000 new daily coronavirus cases for the first time in 3 months. There were 1,045 new infections in Germany on Thursday, according to Robert Koch Institute. 1 in 5 new cases in Germany are believed to originate from abroad. Merkel's government is making tests compulsory from all arrivals from risk zone countries and regions. They include the US, Turkey, and parts of Spain and France. Those who refuse will be fined up to $29,500. Army leaders have delayed the planned transfer of the Fort Hood commander as a team of independent investigators heads to the base to determine whether leadership failures contributed to the murder of a soldier earlier this year and several other deaths. Major General Scott F. Lant, commander of Fort Hood, Texas, was slated to go to Fort Bliss, which is near El Paso, and take over leadership of the 1st Armored Division. Command of a division is a key step in an Army officer's career. The Army said in a statement on Friday that he will now stay at Fort Hood as Army leaders consider whether there will be systemic problems at the base and who should be held accountable. Army Specialist Vanessa Gullion, 20, was killed and dismembered by a fellow soldier. She had been missing since April and her remains were found and identified last month. The soldier suspected in Gullion's slaying, Specialist Aaron Robinson, shot and killed himself early last month as police were trying to take him into custody. A civilian, Cecily Aguilar, 22, of Killen, has been arrested and charged with allegedly helping Robinson dispose of Gullion's body. German Defense Minister Annegret Kramp-Karrenbauer is pushing for a new yardstick to measure Berlin's contribution to NATO, suggesting the country could shoulder 10% of alliance requirements. The figure is meant to reflect the share of NATO's total planning targets, which are tabulated periodically, a Defense Ministry spokesperson told Defense News. Such math would be able to more accurately capture Germany's efforts across the categories, cash capabilities and commitments than the current defense spending objective of 2% of GDP, according to the spokesman. Kramp-Karrenbauer has tried to sink the 2% target for some time, buoyed by the expected economic aftershocks of the coronavirus crisis. With global economies taking a major hit, any objectives tied to national economic output are too volatile to express members' actual utility to the alliance, her argument goes. Iran is urging the United Nations to hold the United States accountable for the interception of an Iranian passenger plane by 2 US fighter jets in the skies over Syria last month, which it called an unlawful and an adventuristic act. Iran's UN ambassador Majid Takht Ravanchi said in identical letters to UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres and the UN Security Council circulated on Friday that Iran expresses its strongest objections against this violation of international law and will pursue the issue through relevant international bodies. Ravanchi said a Mahan Airline Airbus A310 en route from Tehran to Beirut on July 23rd was aggressively and unexpectedly intercepted by 2 US F-15 fighter jets while traveling through internationally specified air corridors in Syria's airspace. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo reportedly warned Russia's foreign minister last month about alleged bounty payments that Russia offered Taliban militants to target US troops in Afghanistan. Pompeo warned Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov against placing bounties on the heads of American soldiers during a July 13 phone call, the New York Times reported, citing unidentified US officials. The phone call was officially about a separate topic, the possibility of meeting between the 5 permanent members of the United Nations Security Council, 2 of which are the US and Russia along China, France and Britain. The Indian Ocean island of Mauritius has declared a state of environmental emergency after a Japanese-owned ship that ran aground offshore days ago began spilling tons of fuel. Prime Minister Pravind Jagannath announced the development last Friday as satellite images showed a dark slick spreading in the turquoise waters near environmental areas that the government called very sensitive. Mauritius has said the ship was carrying nearly 4,000 tons of fuel and cracks have appeared in its hull. Jagannath said his government has appealed to France for help, saying the spill represents a danger for the country for some 1.3 million people that relies heavily on tourism and has been hit hard by the effects of the coronavirus pandemic. Our country doesn't have the skills and expertise to refloat stranded ships, he added. Bad weather has made it impossible to act, and I worry what could happen on Sunday when the weather deteriorates. A Palestinian woman was shot dead in the West Bank, where Israeli soldiers clashed with Palestinians on Friday, Palestinian medical officials said. Palestinian officials said Israeli troops had shot the 23-year-old. An Israeli army spokesman said soldiers did not use live fire during the clash and that Palestinians had opened fire and held explosives. The woman's family said she was shot while trying to close a window to her house in the town of Jenin because of tear gas outside. An Israeli army spokesman said a riot erupted while troops were operating in Jenin. Palestinians fired live fire, hurled rocks and explosive devices towards the troops. The troops responded with riot dispersal means, the spokesman said, denying that the soldiers had used live ammunition. Local residents said Palestinians had not used guns. They said people were throwing stones at Israeli forces that raided the area. This is Jyoti reporting for Our Voice.